12:30.
Are we taking it down somewhere else? Or
Yeah, we'll take it down in the actual lab 200.
Oh,
That's where all our computers are.
You come back here for lunch or just?
No, we'll go straight to 200 after lunch. Y'all just come down there. Y'all know where 200's at, right? That's where the class was originally scheduled at. And it's not a classroom. It's actually a computer lab / PLC lab. So we'll be doing our, some of our PLC labs. The labs that we're going to do, we can do in here. Because I think the first few labs are basically written labs. So you're not going to work on a team on these labs. Homework labs and stuff like that, those are not team labs. But then when we go to start actually working with the PLCs, we'll be dealing with teams of 2, right? Is that what we said?
so I'm just executing the code on the side.
So these are the procedures we'll follow for the lab. One of the things that we're supposed to be doing in our program is, not only teach you the technology, but also teach you to follow instructions and all other kinds of stuff that goes with finding and keeping a job. So what you're looking at there is the procedures that we're going to follow in the lab. First of all, we don't wear short pants and open-toed shoes in my classes. You can take a math class or something like that. But what we're doing is we're training you for industry, right? Not following procedures will be that from the student lab grade. No eating in the classroom or lab. No tobacco products or vape devices allowed in the building. No dip bottles allowed. No beverages in the alcohol lab. So you can have beverages in here, but you can't take them into the lab around our computers in there, right? Or our PLC. You just fill those in the PLC. All forms and lab entries must be completed in pencil. So y'all gotta have a pencil in this class. I think I told y'all about that. Me getting tired of following road maps, right? Because people will do what? They'll make a mistake and then they'll mark it out, and then they make a mistake and they'll mark it out, and they make a mistake and mark it out, and pretty soon they're drawing me errors all over the place. And then I've got to grade all these labs, and you think about your class, but think about all the classes that I have to teach. And all the classes that I teach are lab-based. So, what's nice about a pencil, you got an eraser on it, and you can erase it. So what we do in this class is we use lab forms. So there should be an example of a lab form on the back of this handout. It should be filled in for you. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to obtain a blank lab form. They're going to be up in the front desk. So I normally will say in the front desk, first left-hand desk when you walk in there. That's usually where my station. And what you're going to do is you're going to this lab form. This is what I grade you on. So when I come back and you're doing this or doing that, and you're supposed to be doing this and doing that, then what I do is I grade. I mark that on this lab form. And then, of course, you'll turn in your labs. And if you notice when you get your lab book, all the pages are perforated, which means they can be what? Torn out. So what you're going to do is you're going to tear these labs out and you're going to turn them in. And you're going to attach the lab form on them, and then I'll complete grading the other stuff that you have to do inside the lab besides just constructing circuits. That makes sense? And then at the end of the semester, if you want your labs back, I'll keep this sheet, and then I'll give you your labs back. We're responsible for your grade for 5 years. So that means we used to try to keep all of these labs, but every time somebody said, "Can I get my labs back?" we'd say, "No, you can't, because we're responsible for 5 years." So that's why we came up with this lab form. So as long as I got a document that specifies how we came up with your grade, then that's all I need to have. That makes sense? And then at the end of the semester, I can do what? If you want your lab back, I'll give them back to you. If you don't want them back, I'll tear the lab form off and I'll shred the labs that I don't have. And that way we don't have to store all these labs for 5 years. We used to have boxes, all these, big boxes that we get our copy paper in. They were all in room 206 and we had them stacked up. And we had to keep that for 5 years. So now I can put 2 years of work in one box. So it's really made a big difference on the way we store things. And I can give you back your last name. So there's some required information that you'll see. It's pretty obvious what part you're supposed to fill in. So when you look at the lab form, anything that's clear or white, not grayed out, that's where you fill stuff in, and the other part is where I fill stuff, except for the gray part. So what you're going to do is these lab forms will be in the front. You go up there and get your lab, and then when I come back when I come back to your workstation and to grade your team on what you're doing, then if I mark off anything, I'll mark it off on that lab form. That makes sense? Everybody okay? You have one lab form. Everybody's got their own lab form because there's such certain sections in the lab book that you're not going to be doing everything. Everybody understand that? Fill in required information at the top of the lab form before starting. If you don't have the lab form, I come back there. All this information is supposed to be filled in. I come trucking back there. We got 16 people in the class. Odds are we're going to have 4 or 5 people all the time waiting on me. And you come back here and he says, oh, I don't have my lab form. So what do you have to do? You have to go up there and get one, right? You understand? And so what you're doing is you're taking away from other people while I'm waiting on you to get your lab form. So you go up there and get your lab form and I'll put a little thing I'll take off points for not following instructions. So that way you pay a little penalty for not having your lab form, right? You understand? So it's pretty simple. You go up there and get a lab form, fill in the top part, and then the rest of it's up to me, except for the time. You have to keep up. We like to keep a track of how long it takes students to do these labs, so you keep up with your time too, and then all the rest of it's these lab forms, these are your grades. So I come back here and I sign something off. I sign it off on the lab form. And then you take the lab form and at home when you lose it. And then you come back and you said, oh, you did that. I already did that. Well, what's the chance of me remembering that you already did that? Slim to none. So what would you have to do? You probably have to go back and redo it if you want credit for it, right? You understand? So these lab forms don't leave the classroom. So we have a drawer up at the front. It's labeled, right now it's labeled ILT 196. And it says lab's not ready to be graded. So if you have a tendency to lose things, then you don't even need to take your lab. And I can't tell you, I don't know if there's anybody else using that lab or not. I know they use it to take tests, but we don't teach classes. So you might think about leaving your lab book in one of the drawers in your too. Only get one lab form at a time. I go back to a table, there's 15 lab forms back there, and you say, I'm ready for a sign-off. One lab form at a time, right? You understand that? Check the instructor's lab book manual for corrections. I have to find the correction manual that's around here somewhere. Write your name in the title page. Make sure you put your name on your title page because you're going to staple this lab form to your lab. Well, how many times you think while I'm handling these things around, these things get tore off? And so I've got your lab form, but I don't know where your lab's at because you didn't put your what on. You didn't put your name. So when you look at your lab in your lab book, there's a space at the top where you put your what up there. Put your name up there. Everybody okay? Unless otherwise specified, labs that require a logic searchers to be entered into the computer or to be formed in a team of no more than 2 students. That's what we're going to have to do here. Homework labs are not a team lab and must be completed by each individual student. When your team needs an activity, sign off the team member supervising the lab. So you're 2 people working on a lab, and it's none of this garbage. where you're out doing something else while your team member is sitting there working. Y'all understand that? You are a team. So what that means is that we have two roles. We have the person entering into the computer, and then we have the other person is basically the supervisor of the team at that time. Okay. So what are you trying to do? Y'all trying to work as a team doing these labs, right? Does that make sense? And so you have each other out. I don't want to see. So we got one team on, one person on the computer. We got one basically helping the other person by calling out numbers and saying, okay, assigning ports and stuff like that. And so I don't want to see the person that's supposed to be supervising over there in front of the computer when it's the other person's time. Y'all understand that? Okay. And then what happens on the next lab? You switch places. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. And you keep switching places. And that's why there's a section in here where you put who the programmer is and who the supervisor is when you look at the lab. And everybody okay on that? So I mean, everybody. I taught a class of advanced PLCs one time, and there's several people that took that class, and there were some kids in there that had never entered a program, and I was very upset about it. So what happened is they got in a team where one person wanted to dominate, and they just let them do it. So they sat on the side the whole time and got credit for these labs. That's not right, right? You understand? So they took advanced. So I had like 4 people drop out of advanced PLC first week because they never entered a program. They didn't even know how to set them up and get the PLC, get the computer ready for that processor. But yet they passed intro to PLC. Now think about that. I was very upset with the instructor that taught that class. And they're no longer teaching for us. So we take turns. We have a supervising write their name on the lab sign-off sheet that will be located in front of the sheet. So what we got a bunch of people that's trying to get my time. And what you have is you people, I've had this happen, people will grab me and try to get me to do things, while we got other people waiting on me. So what we do is we have a sign-off sheet. It'll be up at the front desk. And when your team's ready for a sign-off, you'll come up there and write your name on that thing, on that sheet of paper. If you need a question, you come up there and put your name on that sheet of paper, and you check that you're going to ask, you need a question or you need help, right? You understand? If you're ready for a sign-off, you'll mark that, and then there's another spot where you'll put your station number at. So when you go in there and sit down, you'll see there's numbers up on the little black board that says the station number, and that way I know where to come to, right? You understand? So that's the way lab runs, guys. If you say, Rich, can I ask you something? I say, I'm going to check the list. That's what I'm going to do. And that way it's, how many's ever been to a store and you're sitting there ready to pay money and somebody calls in on the telephone and they're sitting there spending 15 minutes asking these people questions and you're standing there trying to pay for something? Y'all like that? So they're spending all this time with a maybe when you should be a for sure. So that's what we're saying. Even if you have a question, guys, I'll answer questions. And we'll start out pretty lenient as far as getting help and doing stuff like that. But as we move through the program, we're going to start, there's a part on the lab form you said that needs assistance. Well, the first of the semester, take advantage of all the assistance you can get, because after the first week, we start grading more stricter in the class. Because you should what? Yeah, you should know a lot more. So if I keep having to come back and tell you how to do the same thing over and over again, if you went to work for a company and you constantly have to ask the same thing over and over again, what would happen? Yeah, you're right. Bye. So, place a check mark by the lab procedures while you're doing it, so that way I know exactly when you're at. You need to label all your push buttons. So part of our supplies, you're supposed to have some sticky notes, and you can see up on this PLC up here. So you got 8 switches and you got 8 lights up there, and you're supposed to say, okay, Now, the way the labs are written up, it says, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to run this motor 1 after this, motor 2 after that, do this, do that. Well, if you don't label those switches up there, and you might have 4 switches that you're using inside simulating sensors and stuff like that, and if you don't have them labeled, right, you understand? So label, that's why you're supposed to buy those sticky notes, they're arrow sticky notes, so you can do what on top of those things? Number them or label what they are, like your start button, your stop button. You don't have to label them with your address. That's what you want to do. You want to label them with whatever name you give that symbol. What you're going to have to do every time you put a symbol in there, it's going to pop up and ask you to enter a name. You need to come up with a name.
I thought you were talking about the slot.
No, we don't.
Zero, like number them to zero.
No, that's. Don't write on my PLC. We have trainers, and we can fix these trainers. And I've had instructors do this, guys, and I got so peeved. Is they'll get a permanent marker, and I have a trainer that don't work, and they'll get a permanent marker and write bad on it. So, my grandchildren thinks if I can't fix it, it can't be fixed. So we can fix every bit of these things. So, you know, if you do if you take some electronics courses and you get a trainer that's not working, don't write bad on it with a permanent marker. Get a sticky note or something, or a piece of tape. So once you're confident that the circuit is working as prescribed, have the lab instructor check the circuit, and it's your lab book. So I check every circuit. So it's not one of these where you go and punch in a circuit and then you say, go to another and go to another one. I've had this happen. Come back there, guys said he's done 10 labs, and I haven't seen one of them. So I have to see the circuit. I have to see the circuit that you interoperate. And then what'll happen is, once it operates, I'll initial your lab book, and I'll initial the lab form under the activity. Everybody okay there? So I have to see it work. Before the circuit is checked off, questions will be asked by the instructor to determine if you understand the circuit's operation. Circuits that are not checked by the instructor will have to be read to instructor in order to receive partial credit. And a deduction will be made for not following instructions. A major deduction will be made on labs that is turned in without an instructor's signature. I've had students, for some reason, they think if they turn in a lab, they get credit for it. They don't think I grade them. You know, I've got people turn in labs that are totally blank. They'll put their name up at the top, put their name on the lab form, flip it up, turn it in, and expect me to give credit for that. That happens a lot. Students will be not awarded points for portion of experiments completed by team members when they are party or absent. When the absent party team member returns, he or she must continue labs at the point at which the present team member is currently working. There is no time schedule to make up lab due to absence. Now, what we do at the end of the semester, we drop labs at all the ends. Usually in this class, since we have so many, we drop 2 labs. That way, if something does happen, but you're not going to penalize the person that was here because you were absent, right? Y'all understand that? So when you come in and, you know, this person, you took a day off, they've done 3 labs. Well, when you come back, you got to do what? You got to start on the lab that they're working on. Everybody understand that? And if your team moves through the rest of the labs and you get through early, then you know, if your team finishes the labs early that's required for the course, then what can you do then? Then you can make them up. Everybody understand that? That'd be nice to get paid for not showing up for work. Even though I did. We get what they call sick days. We get 1 sick day per year, per month. And we can accrue them, which means a lot. Yeah, they add up. We keep them from year to year to year. And then we get 5 personal days a year. No, those, but yes and no. What you do, if you don't use your personal days a year, then you can add them to your sick leave. So that's 17 days a year, that we get. When I had my motorcycle wreck, I was out for a year and a half. How many paychecks did I miss? None. Why? Because all my days, I have almost 2 years of sick leave. And if you don't use them, you can apply it toward your retirement. So if you got, once you get 25 years, and then your retirement is based on your year's service, and you're paid for your best 3 years. All lab forms must be completed by each team member for each experiment, so both team members have the lab form right. All lab forms must be turned into the instructors in the lab session so the process can be verified. A lab grade form will be returned to each student at the next lab session. Then we have students in a team must take turns, right? Questions at the end of the experiment are not a team effort. Then we got the procedure for turning in the lab. Once you complete the lab, remove the completed experiment from the lab book. Place the pages in the correct order, beginning with the lab grade form. That's one thing that gets me too. I got a key I go by, and your pages are all out of order. Title page, it says, contains all information about the activity. The lab title page must be included in the packet. Staple the packet in the upper left-hand corner. Why I do that? I had a guy that stapled it in the right, and I'm right-handed, and it's hard for me to grade his lab. Place the packet in the box, label PLC labs to be graded. Actually, it's a drawer in this one. So when you walk in the lab, you'll see a gray cabinet by the front lab bench, and there's 2 drawers in there. One of them's labeled ILT 196 labs to be graded, ILT 196 labs not to be graded. I know this is ILT 194, but 196 is the advanced class. This box is located on the lab bench at the front. Do not forget to write your name in the space provided by the lab form, which already should have been done, and on the lab title page. If you have discussion pages in the lab, you don't have to include those in the packet. But I think I need to take that out because I'm pretty sure in this lab book, everything is, there's no real discussion. The completed experiments must be turned in with all written questions answered at the beginning of the next class meeting after the circuit experiment has been signed off. So when you do your last activity inside a lab, what I'll do, if you look at the lab form, it's got a date completed and a date due. The date due will be at the next class. So that way, if there's stuff you got to write in and fill in, so sometimes you have to draw things and stuff like that toward the end of the lab, and that way you can go and do those at home. Completed experiments must be turned in, all written questions answered at the beginning of the next session. The lab grade will be reduced by 10 points for every 24-hour period the labs are late. I've had kids do that too. I've had students come in the last day of class and turn in all their labs and saying, what's my grade? So what we do is we turn these labs in when you complete them. And then what can I do? Well, I can grade them as the semester goes on and keep up with your grade book, right? You understand that? So I have to grade these labs. So there's no way in the world you can turn these labs in at the very last day. Because every time you finish a circuit, I'm going to put a date that these things are supposed to be turned in. Everybody understand that? And then if you don't turn them in when they're due, then I start taking points off. And then if you bring me 15 labs at the end of the semester, then odds are you'll get a 0 on just about all of them. Does everybody understand that? Completed labs will remain in instruction possession through the entire term. The completed lab assignments will be returned to the student during the first week of the next semester upon request. of the students. Labs that are not claimed during the first this time period will be shredded. If you want your lab back, that's fine. If you don't want your labs back, then that's not fine. I mean, it's fine too, but I'll just shred them. So don't come in 3 weeks into the next semester saying, I want my lab back, because what's going to happen by then? We got a real nice shredder over in Mills Lab. Staples and everything. You just stick them in there. It's just shred it up. Yeah, I don't use it much because I got one in my office too. Any questions on the lab procedures? So everybody look at the lab form on the back. Is that okay? I see pretty straightforward the way it's filled in. Well, that's your example. So we have a stack of lab forms. They'll be at the front desk in there.
That's the first lab form right here.
What's that?
What you did over there?
Now these are the actual lab forms. What I've done is given you an example of how the parts that you're supposed to fill in. And then where I grade down there, I gave you an example of how it would be graded. So it's pretty straightforward on what we do. And it's really important on a class this size, so that way everybody gets a chance, right? And of course, to do circuits, everybody takes turns. Everybody fills in the information in their lab book, so right, you understand? Does that make sense? So don't, well, so-and-so wrote it in his lab book. I've had that too. Well, so-and-so wrote it in his lab book, and this person's absent. And you're there, well, so I think the lab books are set up in activities. They're set up in dashes, and I have a list of the labs that's required for the class, so I'm gonna have to verify it and see what we can do. The first few labs we're gonna start on in class, but then what I want you to do is finish them up at home, because these are all. There's some labs though that you're gonna have to do here, and that's where you're gonna identify our PLCs. Probably we can do that in here because we have every PLC that the college owns, except for the PLCs that are on the Amatro line. Those are 7300s, that's 7300, 314 really. We got the I showed y'all the module, right? We got the 1200. If you take the third PLC class, this is the PLC that you'll be dealing with in that class. It's called, right now we call it PLC 3. I don't know what the title, I'd have to go look at it. But it's scheduled to be off again. So you won't be ready. Take it advanced PLC. So any questions on this? Any questions on the lab form? Everybody okay? Any questions about the procedure? So if you don't have the lab,